what kind of spells would you put on an artist painter champion? I feel like his kit doesn't match the ideas I've always had. You talking about Hwei? I think Hwei is a pretty good take on an artist painter champion. He kind of, has a lot of things in his art book that he can bring out to bring to life. I think he's a decent take on it. Other versions we've had that we thought of are artist painters, or one that could literally draw things, right? Like you could draw a wall or draw a shape, and then it would like cause that wall or shape to happen. We've generally found those takes, though, to be fairly flawed in the contents of League of Legends. And one of the main reasons is that in League, based on how the game works and flows, a lot of the shapes that you think would be cool or creative just end up being pointless. And the shapes you're only really ever supposed to draw are lines or circles, basically. And so, well, you could imagine like an artist character being like, oh, you could draw a fish and a star and a crescent. It's like, well, you can draw those things, but those shapes aren't going to make as much sense as just drawing a straight line or drawing a circle most of the time. So whenever we've tried versions of a painter that had draw a thing, the gameplay wasn't all that compelling. There's maybe a thing where it's like, and this is a very Hwei-like thing, so Hwei already does this, but like you could imagine maybe a painter who draws shapes that correspond to spells. So it's like if you draw a star, that casts the star spell. If you draw a check mark, it casts the check mark spell. And so like shapes correspond to gestures, which correspond to spells. Like maybe there's something interesting there. Although Hwei just does that in a different way by like letting you choose your spell in a book. Would you play Marvel Rivals? It's very casual and fun. Yeah, I hear Marvel Rivals is pretty good. I played it a bit. It's pretty fun. I worry they're going to get into like Overwatch land where they focus too much on competitive and then the game gets not fun because it gets tuned around competitive, which probably makes it less fun. I don't know if they're actually going to end up doing that though, so we'll see how it turns out. But definitely in their first... For now, it's a pretty sweet game when you play it casually, which is pretty cool. I just hope I hope the fun is not tuned out of the game, which can be rough. Like that's not like it's not an easy thing, because when players learn to optimize a game, one of the things that players often learn to do is optimize the fun out of a game, and then you as a dev then have to tune it and find ways to ensure that the fun things are the optimal things, right? So like I hear as an example that it's already shifting towards triple support. I don't know how true that is, but like I don't know if triple support is the ideal space for Marvel Rivals. And so yeah. Anyways, just noting it's a hard space. Especially when a game like that gets more and more and more optimized. How will it be tuned to ensure the game is still cool and fun and exciting while being competitive? Why are we fine with Teemo being the jungle but not Twitch? Twitch is a extremely degenerate pattern when he is good in the jungle. Because Twitch's pattern is don't farm the jungle, walk into lane, kill you with ranged basic attacks, right? It's pretty rough. And yeah, it's just kind of a thing where it's like, Twitch jungle probably allowed to be fringe viable, but if Twitch jungle is ever really truly viable, I'd say it probably would make like one of the more negative experiences for the game, which is dangerous. Teemo jungle just isn't even close to Twitch jungle. Teemo jungle can't stealth and then walk behind you in your lane and then kill you. Right? It's a big difference. Do you know the reason behind the removal of RELL jungle? Yes. RELL jungle was removed because we had to balance her around pro play, and it had a very, very low, close to non-existent play rate. So it was a thing, while it was viable, the only people who were really interested in playing it seemed to be pro players, and then we had to nerf RELL for her other roles to deal with that. And so it's kind of a thing where when there's a role that's causing you to have to nerf a character, and that role is very, very unpopular and abusable, like say in pro play, compared to that main role, it's often a question of like, is that role worth keeping? And so we decided it's like probably not worth keeping RELL Jungle, considering how underplayed it is compared to how powerful it is in Pro. Now, if it was a lot more popular, we probably would have kept it. Like if RELL Jungle had was able to hold a meaningful play rate, I think we would have kept it. But because it wasn't, it felt like it probably was just better to remove, given we had to nerf it for Pro. I think one of the reasons RELL Jungle never really got that popular for the average player is I think the way we made RELL Jungle was not ideal. Specifically, the way RELL Jungle worked is we gave her really, really, really strong aggressive jungle mods on her spells. So her Q would just explode jungle camps, as an example. But then her spells were still like the spells of a really high cooldown tank character. And so what would happen is you'd play RELL Jungle, you'd walk into the jungle, you'd cast all your spells in the camp, and then it would be half dead, and then you'd sit there auto-attacking it kind of sad, and then when your spells come up, you finish the camp. And one thing that's really, really important for jungle characters is that it's not enough for a jungler to be viable in the jungle. You can make almost any character viable in the jungle by giving them fast enough clear speed. That's just something you can do. It also needs to be enjoyable to clear camps with that character. And that's something that I think was just something that RELL Jungle was missing a bit that ended up being, I think, pretty rough in the long run. Yeah, so, yeah. TLDR, RELL Jungle was overpowered in Pro play, so we had to nerf her for Pro, which caused us to then have to nerf RELL overall for her support players. And that generally feels bad if the role that the character is getting nerfed for is very, very, very unpopular. Because then you're nerfing a character for a bunch of players, and the people who actually play the actual role that they're mostly played in tend to suffer. And so in cases like that, it's usually a question of, should we remove this extra role? In the case of RELL, it was like, yeah, probably. How do I feel about tanks versus assassins in the current meta? Well, we recently nerfed tanks, like just now. There's a number of tank item nerfs that went in this patch, so they're probably not going to be as strong. In regards to assassins, I'd say that assassins have probably been, somewhat on the weak side on average for a while at this point. I wouldn't necessarily say they're non-viable or you can't play them, but it definitely feels like you have to, in the average game on an assassin, maybe work a bit harder to get the win conditions that you're looking for.